is Manal Faiz and you're watching From Scratch. On today's episode of From Scratch, we're making mayonnaise to use for our maki. For mayonnaise, what you're going to need is some vinegar, egg yolks, some cayenne pepper, a bit of salt, some lemon juice, and some corn oil. To get started, what you're going to need is a very strong mixer or blender, just like this. What we're going to do is pop in our egg yolks, the full amount of vinegar, pinch of cayenne pepper. I'm gonna go with 2 pinches, pinch of salt, and then what we're gonna do is we're slowly going to stream in our corn oil to get it nice and emulsified. So just make sure that you got this nice and secured. We're gonna switch on our mixer and slowly drizzle in the oil. So a really important ingredient to add as well is some Dijon mustard. So I'm gonna open up our mixer and add that. Turn on the machine again, and then we can start drizzling in the oil. So we're gonna add the last ingredient, which is our lemon juice, and then get that nice and blended up. So I just took out our mayonnaise from our blender and I have it right here in a bowl. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to grab some sriracha and mix that in to make a spicy mayonnaise. So our mayonnaise from scratch is done. What's left to do is construct our maki. So that's exactly what we're gonna do right after the break. So what we're gonna work on next is our sushi rice. And for that, what you're gonna need is some salt, some sugar, some rice vinegar, some sushi rice, as well as some water. To start off, what we're gonna do is put our rice right into our pan or pot over here. And what I have over here is pre-rinsed rice, and your rice has to be properly rinsed, and you want to make sure that all of that cloudiness goes away completely. So that's going to take you around 10, 15, even up to 20 washes, depending on your quality of the rice that you're using. So I've got all of the rice right into my pot right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to kind of level it, making sure I've got an even layer of rice. And what I'm going to do next is make sure to cover it properly with some water. Right, that's perfect. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to bring this up to a proper boil, and then what I'm going to do is set a timer for 10 to 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes, and let that simmer at a low temperature without opening up the lid. And you're only gonna cover it up with a lid once it actually comes up to a boil. So it's on high heat to reach a proper boil. We're gonna cover it up and let it simmer. So meanwhile, while this is coming up to a boil, what we're gonna do is prepare for our vinegar or vinegar seasoning solution. And for that, we're gonna grab our vinegar right over here, pour it into our bowl. We're gonna grab our sugar and salt and dump it right in. And this is called a seasoning vinegar for a reason, because as you noticed, I didn't put anything in the pot over here. It's solely just rice and water. What's gonna happen is after it's cooked, we're actually gonna season the rice. So we're just giving this a nice whisk, just to make sure that all of that sugar and salt have completely dissolved into the liquid. You want to make sure this is prepared ahead of time, just because straight after the rice is cooked, you want to season it while it's still warm. Your rice will only absorb the seasoning once it's still warm. If it cools down, it's very hard for the rice to absorb the seasoning. So we're almost up to a boil over here. So as you can see, we have come up to almost a simmer. What we're gonna wait for is for it to come to a proper boil, which is gonna happen in a few seconds. We're gonna pop on the lid, lower down the heat, and let it simmer for around 15 to 20 minutes. So I'm gonna pop on the lid right now, lower down the temperature, and I'm gonna put a timer for 15 minutes. You wanna make sure to not open up the lid anytime from the 15-minute mark, just because you want that built up steam to help cook the rice. So try not to open up the lid. What you could do is swap out the lid with aluminum foil, that works, or you could even cook it in a rice cooker. That really does cut down on cooking time, so I highly recommend, if you do have a rice cooker at home, opt for that. So my rice has been cooking for around 15 minutes. I switched off the heat, and what's left to do is just open it up and let the smoke subside slightly, just so it's easy for us to handle it. What we're gonna do is empty out all of the rice right into our bowl and add in the vinegar to season. So you wanna be very gentle at this stage. You don't want to risk the fact to mush up the rice. So very gentle. release the rice from the pot itself. And then what you're going to do is transfer it right into your bowl. So those burnt or caramelized bits at the bottom, you don't want to scrape that into your bowl. All you want to get is that perfectly cooked bits of rice. Right? So we're just going to let that smoke slightly subside. You want to opt for a very large bowl, something with a larger surface area to kind of air out your rice. You don't want to cool it down too much. You just want that smoke to subside slightly. What I'm going to do right now is add in our seasoning vinegar all the way around. We're going to give this a nice mix. Very gentle mix. You don't want to be too rough. You want to be very gentle with it. You want to ensure all of that seasoning gets evenly dispersed all the way throughout. And meanwhile, while doing so, what you're doing is kind of cooling down the rice, getting it ready to roll. So my rice is nice and seasoned at this stage. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set it aside and set up our station. Meanwhile, what's going to happen is this smoke is going to subside. What you want is still warm but not too hot rice that is ready to use to roll. So what's finally left to do is to assemble everything together. What we have over here is our cooled down rice, not too cold but easy to touch. What you're going to need to assemble everything together is some sliced cucumbers, some crab, some tobiko, sliced avocado, a bit of oil to grease your hands, and what I'm going to use is actually sesame oil, our mayonnaise that we made from scratch, and some nori, otherwise known as seaweed. So to start off, what I'm going to do is grab a piece of nori, and this nori has actually been cut in half. So I identified where all of these straight lines were, and I cut it right into half. What you want to do is make sure you've got the shiny side pointing outwards. We're actually going to do a maki today, so what we're going to do is have the shiny side facing upwards, and what we're going to do is grab the rice and have the rice outside, so surrounding the nori. Before grabbing the rice, what I actually need to do is grease my hands with a bit of oil, and this is going to ensure that the rice does not stick onto my hands, and it's just going to be easier to handle. So make sure you got those hands nice and greased up. What I'm going to do is grab a good amount of rice. So I like to measure it with cupping my hands together. You may need just a little bit more. And what I'm going to do is spread it all out, just like so. You don't want to really scrunch that rice too much. You want to be very delicate, and you want all of that rice to reach all the way to the corners of the seaweed. So I'm just simply using my fingertips to spread out the rice. You don't want to add too much rice. So this is just a perfect amount, just like so. Again, as I said, you want to reach the granules of rice all the way to the corners of the nori. You want to make sure everything is completely covered. So once that is done, what I'm going to do is actually flip it over. Just like so. And then we're going to fill it this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some of that crab. You want to section off your sushi into the first quarter. This is where you want to have all of your filling, and then enough space for you to actually roll everything together. Do not overfill, just because it's going to be very hard for you to roll. That is why you want to opt for very thin slices of everything. Don't overcrowd again. That's just a recipe for disaster. Just gonna grab some of that avocado, very thinly sliced, and you could always go for some avocado puree, where you just mash up those avocados, put them in a piping bag or something that you could easily pipe it on. The last thing I'm gonna do is add some of that mayonnaise that we made. And we're gonna start rolling. So you want this to come all the way to the end of your sushi mat. Just like so. When you're gonna start rolling, you wanna tuck everything right inside and give that a nice squeeze. And then one last squeeze. You don't wanna be too rough, you wanna be quite gentle in this step. So we're almost done. The very last step to do is take some of that tobiko, get that nice all over. So you want to make sure you get a nice even layer. So make sure you get that even at the bottom of your roll. One last shaping. So how I like to shape it is use the corner of my sushi mat and kind of pull it towards me, and this gives it a nice shape. And what I'm going to do towards the end is put it onto my cutting board and then push it this way, where you'll get a perfect size on the corners as well. So you don't really have to get rid of those corners. So I'm gonna set this aside, and then I'm gonna keep on going, creating more rolls. So when you do decide to set this down on the side, what you want to make sure of is you set it down seam side down. And what's going to happen over here is it's actually going to seal off properly, and that residual heat from your rice is going to help with warming up your nori to seal it off properly. All right, so we have our makis resting over here. Keep in mind that they have been resting seam side down. What's left to do right now is to actually cut them up. And just because we reached our rice all the way to the edges, there is no need to trim it down. What you want to keep in mind is always to have a very sharp knife and a wet piece of paper or tissue paper right next to you. And this is to wipe down your knife after every slice. So to start off, what you want to do is identify the middle, give that a nice slice. Every time you slice through, you always want to wipe down your knife. So nice and sliced up. What's left to do is just place this on your serving plate. We're going to slice up some more to fill up our serving plate. So very gently you want to slice through. You don't want to really rock back and forth too much. What you want to do is just make sure you just slice through. So I'm just going to garnish with just a little bit of mayonnaise to bring our topic of the day back, which is mayonnaise from scratch. So what I'm going to do is top off some, but not all. And there you have it, our mayonnaise made from scratch to make our maki roll for the day. I hope you guys enjoy, and I'll see you guys next time on From Scratch.